Did you know coffee is the most consumed beverage in the world? After all, it's a part of daily life for billions of people. But have you ever dreamed of turning your love for coffee into something bigger? Have you ever wondered what it really takes to build a coffee brand from scratch? And how do you stand out in one of the most competitive industries in the world? The following is a conversation with Maria Eduarda Becker Pavani, the founder and CEO of Três Coffee Company. She's a certified Q grader, World National Barista Championship judge, and coffee entrepreneur who turned her love for specialty coffee into a thriving international brand. So whether you're a coffee business owner, looking to enter the industry, or curious on how to launch an international coffee brand, then look no further. This episode is for you. And if you enjoyed this episode, guys, if you could please do me the small favor of hitting that subscribe button, would really help me build the show and build the channel and bring more amazing guests and inspiring conversations. But that's enough from me for now. Let's get to the episode. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Hope It Helps. And I have someone on the podcast with me today, guys, that I've known about for years, but finally have the pleasure of sitting down with. Please welcome to the show, Miss Maria Pavani. Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Khaled, for the opportunity to be here. And I'm very excited. I think this is my second podcast.
Yeah, I watched your first one.
God. So yeah, I hope that, we enjoy this time together.
Yeah, no, I'm sure we will. So Maria, first of all, thank you so much for your time and for coming on the show. So just to give you some context, I first found out about you and Três Maria, I think it must have been maybe when I moved back to Dubai, maybe it was 2020. And I was at Ripe Market with a friend who's also into coffee. And he's like, oh man, have you heard of Três Maria? I'm like, no, I haven't. We tried the coffee. We loved it, obviously. And then time went on. And then I started seeing the milks pop up, all over the place. And my wife loves coconut milk and she's obsessed with your milk. She only buys from you guys. She's like, this is the best. I've tried them all. Theirs is the best. So what I wanted to do today, Maria, is kind of just talk to you about coffee, your story, your journey. I've had many coffee people on the podcast and they all said, you got to have Maria on the show. So I'm so excited to speak to you and just dive into the industry here, building a coffee brand, your journey, and dive into a couple more things. But before we get into everything, Maria, why don't you give all of us a little bit of background about yourself and we'll take it from there.
Okay, sure. So my name is Maria Eduarda Becker Pavani.
We got it in.
That's the full name.
Yeah.
Maria Pavani, as you introduced me. I come from Brazil. I'm here in Dubai for 12 years. I run a business called Três Coffee. We started in 2019. Prior to that, I was a barista, and I'm graduated in marketing. I also did some theater certification in Europe for three years and a half. What else? I'm a daughter. I have a mom and a dad that lives in Portugal and Brazil. I have two brothers. I have a nephew. I'm a barista by heart. I love adventures. I love traveling the world. I'm very curious. I like to understand things. I like to ask questions. I like to challenge myself to understand what is around, Apart from that, I'm a coffee lover. I love hiking. I love swimming. I love nature. And and that's who Maria is, I guess.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for giving us that context. So I had the pleasure on my honeymoon, actually, just before we get into everything, of going to Brazil for my honeymoon. So I went to Rio and I went to Trancoso, and I honestly fell in love. It was Rio in particular. I told everyone, like, guys, you have to go. And I'm a massive fan of the food. Pão de queijo
the pão de queijo.
I could eat that, Maria, every day, all the time, and never get bored. I had it every day for breakfast there. I had the pleasure also of trying some great coffee there too. Mm-hmm. Now, I know your first encounter with specialty coffee was at Café Cultura, I believe,
yes.
In Brazil. And that kind of was the spark of, getting to where we are today. So could you tell me that first experience of when you tasted specialty coffee? Because I remember mine very clearly.
So I was living in Europe when I turned 18. My mom took me to live in Lisbon. That's when I started studying theater. And then after graduating, I decided that it was time for me to, go back to Brazil. I felt that I kind of, did what I had to do in Portugal and it was time for me to do something else. So I went back to Brazil. And of course, after traveling Europe. I come from a very small town in Brazil. We're like 50,000 people. Everybody knows everybody. And in my town, I'm kind of like the daughter of my father, right?
That's how you're known.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I never really liked that. I mean, although I love my dad and I love my family, I was like, no, I want to be Maria, and who is Maria? And so when I came back to Brazil, I felt that, after seeing Europe and kind of getting to know myself a little better, I didn't want to go back to, that small town. I wanted to explore something, more. What is the next level? And I went to live in our capital, which is called Florianópolis, which is an island in Brazil, in Santa Catarina, my state. Literally, I printed my CVs and I went to the center of the island and I started giving my CVs. And then I remember that the manager of Café Cultura looked at my CV and he said, I think we can hire you. We're looking for a waitress and you can come and start working with us tomorrow. And I was very excited, like I got a job, I was, I think, 20 years old. So I didn't know, my capabilities of finding a job or,
Sure.
Kind of figuring out things. So I got super excited and I started working with them. And then they were actually the first specialty coffee roastery in that city. So they were just starting, they had a cafe and they are kind of like buying green coffee and then roasting it and then supplying to their cafes. But they saw the potential and they were expanding. So they had this small roastery that tourists would come and buy fresh coffee to take from that town as a gift, as a souvenir. So after 1 month of serving tables, they actually told me, what, we need someone to handle the roastery. And it has to be someone who is very proactive, who talks well and kind of like engage with the clients, because the clients that come here, they come on that mood to purchase, to buy. They want to understand the coffee. They want to understand, why Brazil is so good with coffee. So I moved to that department of the business, and that's when I kind of started understanding coffee, a bit deeper. I think a lot of people don't know, as I didn't know at the time, but coffee is a fruit.
Yeah, I didn't know
right?
that either when I first got into coffee. Yeah.
So coffee is a fruit, and then inside of the cherry of the fruit, you have two seeds, which are actually the coffee beans. And then the two main species of coffee, let's say, is Arabica and Robusta. At that time, specialty coffee would be specifically Arabica coffee, which is, which can grow in a higher altitude. And because of that, it's a bit more refined, more complex. It has, a kind of like a soft taste on the mouthfeel. And that was my first encounter with understanding what coffee was. Right. And then in Brazil as well, we don't really import green coffee from abroad because we have to support our own, our own ecosystem of agriculture. And because of that, when I got to understand coffee from that perspective, we wouldn't look at coffee as, for example, it's a single origin from Ethiopia, so it should taste more fruity, more acidity, and la la la. It was more like, okay, this is a variety of Arabica that's called, Caturra. Or it's called the yellow bourbon, and normally a yellow bourbon would taste more, like hazelnuts and chocolate and so on. So it was really interesting to have that understanding about coffee from Brazil. And I remember that in Brazil as well, whenever we import something from abroad, we pay a lot of taxes. So it's really difficult to find companies that buy coffee machines from abroad, for example. And that company in specific was the only one that had a La Marzocco machine.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So at that time, I was like, wow, they have a La Marzocco machine, and I'm talking about 13, 14 years ago, and just starting on the community and the industry as well. So I was very lucky to, work with that company because they had high quality products. And they were representing Brazil as well in terms of what we were doing for export. And they were also using, the best equipments possible to roast and brew coffee. So that was my first interaction. And honestly speaking, coffee is it's tricky because, especially specialty coffee, it's like a cult. Once
Absolutely.
you're in,
Yeah,
you cannot get out
That's
because,
so true.
right? It's a universe by itself, and there is always something new coming up, and a new process, and a new way of roasting, and a new way of brewing. So I just got hooked right there in Brazil, and from there I was like, I think I found my passion, and I just wanted to go further with this. So that was my interaction with my first specialty coffee job.
Wow, that's so interesting that I think you made a great point that I know Brazil don't import too much because you guys are one of the largest coffee exporters, in the world. So the model doesn't really make sense. So I understand why it would be more difficult to bring things from outside. But it's interesting that your passion or your journey into coffee kind of happened almost by accident in a way. It wasn't like something like, oh, I've always loved coffee my whole life and I knew I was going to go into it. So I love that story because people always talk about finding your passion, but sometimes it pops up when you don't expect it, when you don't realize it, when you don't know what's going on. Coming on to the specialty coffee aspect. So my whole life, I was never like a crazy coffee drinker, but I liked coffee. But the traditional stuff, the Nescafes, the instant, quick, whatever coffee, I thought that was, in quotations, what good coffee was. A friend of mine, shout out Amin, he's been mentioned many times on the podcast when I speak about coffee because he's like my teacher. He came visit me in Amsterdam. He stayed with me for 6 weeks, and I saw him every day making like this. He's pouring coffee and making this thing. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm making a Kalita. I think it was a pour over. I'm like, and every day I'm like, okay, could I try it? That first sip, Maria, I will never forget it because I was like, what's going on? Like, I didn't know coffee could taste like this, could have these flavors. And kind of like what you said, once you're in, that's it. And I've just been getting deeper and deeper and deeper as time goes on. True. You talked about I think when it comes to specialty coffee, there's an education that comes with it. Over the years, the deeper I've gone into coffee and the more I appreciate it and started brewing at home, I learned more about how, the process, that it was a fruit, the flavor notes I like, the complexities I look for, what regions, resonate with me. And now I feel like, for example, if we're talking about here in the Middle East, the coffee culture has massively expanded, especially in specialty coffee. And the education, I think consumers are now a lot more aware of what they want than they were before. But I think there's almost like, there's the specialty coffee cult that I'm a part of, that we're in. But to the general public, I still feel like there's a gap of why I should try a specialty coffee. Why should I look for a higher quality coffee? Besides the story that comes behind it, just in terms of quality. So my question to you is, as someone who's been in the industry for a long time, is what's the next level of education we need to get to really see, I guess, more of an adoption into the specialty coffee space?
Mm-hmm. I think that in coffee or in life, but in coffee, that's the subject of today, there is no right and wrong, right? So a lot of people ask me, what is the best coffee? Like the best coffee is the coffee that you like, that you enjoy, right? If I don't like acidity in my coffee, then perhaps the education will help me to understand that I should order maybe a coffee from Brazil, maybe a coffee from Colombia, or maybe somewhere from Central America, and perhaps not an Ethiopian or something from Asia, for example, right? So education plays a very big role on you understanding what you like. And then your approach for coffee is going to change because then you understand. Or if you like, for example, fruity coffees, right? Then yes, if you're going to drink a Brazilian coffee, and if it's that, basic Brazilian specialty coffee, 83 points, for example, then you're not going to find much acidity and you're not going to find much complexity on that acidity. So perhaps, but the problem is not the coffee, because the coffee is what it is. The problem is you, or there is no problem, but the challenge here is actually you educating yourself more to understand what is your taste in coffee, and then you can have a better choice for you when you order a coffee. So I think that education is very important. For me, for example, as a coffee professional, right, I had to go through that phase of understanding all aspects of coffee, from soil, from plant, from roasting, from storage, from extraction, so I can understand coffee as a whole. And then for my career as well, what aspect of coffee do I like the most, and I would like to go ahead. So as an industry for professionals, the education play a very big role, because the more education we have, the more freedom we have to share knowledge with our customers, and then we can help them to have that understanding about what is that they like. And then as a consumer, it's better for you to understand your coffee, because then you can be more assertive in choosing the best drink for you, because a Brazilian coffee is not gonna change its scores because you would rather have acidity, right? It's something that doesn't make any sense. So I think that right now in the industry, there are a lot of in the UAE in specific. I feel that when I came, for example, 12 years ago, there was no one actually doing coffee education here. Anyone who would like to run a course, we would have to bring educators from abroad. Today, we have companies that are, full-time giving education for coffee professionals and coffee enthusiasts. Apart from that, I think that technology also plays a very big role on that, because today you have everything available online. So there are a lot of nice content creators, putting nice content about coffee out there and talking about, for example, how to do your coffee at home, how many grams you should use, what is the temperature of the water, how the temperature of the water impacts your brew. So there are a lot of contents, but people should be curious and they should be open to kind of explore and go after that information. And if you look for it, you are going to find it. And I feel that as an industry in the UAE itself, I'm very proud, to see how far we've come, especially being here for, 13 years now, and starting from, zero, as almost zero as an industry, but also as a professional. I travel the world and I find it very difficult to find the standards of coffee that we have in the UAE. Here it's every other corner you have, educated baristas, you have good machines, you have great, roasted coffee. Is it perfect? Perhaps not, because, what is perfect really? But our standards here in the UAE are very high, and I'm very proud to see the community, coming from here to here, in such a short period of time. And I feel that education and awareness is definitely, a key part of that change.
No, absolutely. And I think you said something very interesting, that as a consumer, this is what I've, reflecting on what you said, this is what I've realized is, I don't know if I would have ever tried specialty coffee unless someone else, told me, hey, Khaled, come try this different thing. So I think the point you mentioned, and from everyone I've spoken to who has a coffee business in the industry, it almost seems like, from my perspective, you all share this, how would you say it? Like a collective responsibility, that not only to educate you on what type of coffee you like, but to, for example, people tell you the importance of sharing the farmer story, that it's ethically processed. I've had conversations with people on the show that we went through the real dark side of, the industry, and there's so many different ways to get into it. Now, you said you moved to Dubai in, 2013, I believe, and you were a head barista at a hotel, and then you started in specialty coffee for a couple of years, and in 2019 you launched Três. Now, I think you're in a unique position because you went from barista to business owner. And from the conversations I've had with people on the show, it's rare that people make that full transition. You might stop at head barista and then, okay, that's what you do. But to expand to entrepreneurship and to get into roasting coffee and all the different things, how do you think, because you started, as they say, from the bottom, and now you're completely on the other side, you've been through that whole journey, I feel, from my perspective, that gives you a competitive advantage. Would that be fair to say?
I think people love their story. Yes, people love their story. Me as Maria, I try to not rely on their story, and kind of like, not do the needful to get where I should get because I have a story. It's quite the opposite, because you have a story and because you have, your community to represent, I take it very serious, and I don't take advantage of that in a sense where, because of, this and this and that, let me take the easiest route here. It's quite the opposite. I take it with a lot of responsibility to have a platform like Três Marias to showcase coffee, to showcase quality, to showcase innovation, which are the three main pillars of our business today. And even now we're relaunching the website as well. As we mentioned, we're going to talk about that later. And I made sure that all the coffees that are available, they were tasted by me and they were approved by me, and they had something to show from the industry to the clients, rather than just putting any coffee out there just because we have to relaunch the website, for example. So having purpose when I do anything for the brand or I do anything for Maria is very important, because then I'm not wasting my time. And I feel that as well, I'm being as transparent and as fair to my client by really giving a piece of what Maria believes through the brand to the client. So it gives me an advantage to understand the industry, right? Because started from, behind the bar and making coffee, and then going for giving training for baristas or coffee professionals, then managing people, then buying green coffee, roasting, managing a team, growing a business, and then finally Três Marias, right? I think that definitely I understand a lot about, the what can happen inside a coffee business. So that gives me advantage when I go and talk to a client, for example, who owns a coffee shop, right? Or I go and talk to a coffee chain, and they talk about launching a new drink with our alternative milk. I can have a look on that from a barista perspective, right? From a business owner perspective, from the management perspective, and also from the marketing perspective, because, I'm very much involved with the way that we show Três Marias to the world. So definitely that adds a lot of value to my professional life and my business. And also, as I feel that us as humans as well, the more we know, the more interactions we have with other people, the more knowledge we have for ourselves. I think, the more we can interact in a meaningful way with people, be either being a friend or a client or our family or a podcast being shared or so on. So I feel that, definitely starting from a barista and being a business owner right now, that's on the growth, because that's not the end, right? I'm sure there is more things waiting for me out there, but that definitely gives me an advantage to be more compassionate about how I approach everything. From when I go for a tasting with a barista, I talk to him as a barista, because I might not be a barista anymore, but I was a barista at some point. And then, so yes, I think it gives me an advantage, but also it gives me a lot of responsibility. Because as they say, with superpowers, it comes, great responsibilities. So I take it very serious, and I don't, take it for granted, everything that I have and everything that I build. And I try to do my level best to show that through my products and my brand.
Yeah, and I love what you said there, that it's because you've been through all those different stages, it allows you to be, like you said, more compassionate. You understand the challenges of each of those levels. So it enables you, as from my perspective, as you're building this business, what the barista is going through, what the roaster is struggling with, what all those different levels. So it allows you, I think, to really tap into each one and help build the team and empower them, because you've been there, you've had that experience. Mm-hmm. Now I know you also are this is what I thought was really interesting and really cool. I know you started judging National Barista Championships at 2015. You were a sensory certified judge for the World Barista Championship, and you're a Q grader, which is only 10,000 in the world of this certification. Now, when it comes to coffee certifications, so I've spoken to many people on the show, and everyone will give me kind of a different answer. Some say it's very important. Some say it's more of a, what's the word? It's not that it's fake, but it's just like a credibility thing to have. There's not as much value in it once you get into it. Everyone will give you a different answer, but you've done that whole training. So I'm curious, from your perspective, do you think you would have been able to reach this stage without those certifications? Or do you think coffee certifications for any professional at any level is an important thing to get into? Because I think a lot of people here who are the business owners of coffee shops, I will bet money, I'd say 90% don't have those certifications.
It's an interesting point. I remember when I went to Guatemala in 2018. I went for a coffee show, a trading coffee show, that they invited me to be a speaker. And then after that, they linked me to do a coffee education for 15 Guatemalan coffee farmers. So I went to Guatemala. I spent 3 days on the exhibition, and then I went to the coffee farms and I stayed there for 10 days with them. It was beautiful. And so I went there to certify them on the Specialty Coffee Association Sensory Skills Foundation and Intermediate. So while doing the course, or while handling that certification with these farmers, I would we would do the exercises, and I remember that I thinking, these guys, they don't need this certification. They were born and raised inside the coffee farm, and everything that they have done so far is working with coffee and harvesting coffee and cupping coffees and preparing the coffees to be shipped from Guatemala to the rest of the world. When it comes for sensory skills, they would be so specific with every single detail of that coffee, in terms of aroma, in terms of flavors, in terms of acidity, bitterness, aftertaste, they would name sometimes in coffee, you like flavor wise, you drink the coffee and, it's very easy for you to come up with 2 or 3 tasting notes to describe that coffee, right? Those farmers, they would give us maybe 10 different tasting notes that they would have from a coffee. That's how complex and well-trained their palate were. But then, they were there being certified by me, to have a certification. So I'm telling you this story to say that, it really depends. For them, for example, they had the knowledge, but perhaps they would need a piece of paper, to unify that knowledge that they have to the rest of the world, right? To be part of something that's bigger than their farm in Guatemala, for example. And then from my point of view as a coffee professional, right, I have this passion and I love coffee and I want to, be part of this industry worldwide. So how do I communicate my knowledge to the rest of the world, right? So you have to kind of, find a way to understand the language, to speak that, that specific industry to the rest of the world. And I think that's one of the things that the certifications help you with, is because then you learn the terminology to express your experience with that coffee with other professionals around the world. And you see that very clearly as well when we go for the World Barista Championships. We have 3 or 4 days of championships, but then we have to be in the country where the championship is held for an extra 2 days, because we have what we call the sensory judge calibration. So all the judges from all over the world, we stay together for 2 days, drinking the same coffee, seeing this and watching the same presentations, and then calibrating with each other. Why? Because the whole world is very big, right? And we are in different levels of the industry, depending on where you come from. So spending time with other professionals from other countries that are in different levels than you, it takes a bit to adapt and understand and calibrate to make sure that we make the best out of ourselves when judging a coffee fairly. So I think certifications, so to conclude, I think that certifications, if you rely only have a certification in anything, in any aspect of your life, if you just have a piece of paper, but then you got that piece of paper without putting the effort and without being curious and without really, learning from that process, then the piece of paper is not fair and is not valid. But now, if you have that piece of paper as a conclusion of, a series of learning, for the industry that you love, and that piece of paper would open doors for you based on that knowledge, then I think it's very valid. Why not? So I would honestly always recommend, even for my colleagues and people in the industry, I said, you have to start somewhere. So don't waste your time and start with, you can do other stuff as well. But if we have the Specialty Coffee Association, and if we have the Coffee Quality Institute, and they are today the main two certifying bodies, let's say, on the coffee industry, then why not? They are doing something right. They have created and helped us to develop this amazing community. So definitely that would be an amazing starting point. But that doesn't guarantee that you are going to be a great coffee professional, right? Because what guarantees that is your effort and your hard work towards the community. So I think, yes, definitely you should get certified, but not expecting that's it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story, because for people who want to get into the industry or are coffee professionals and they want to expand and so on, I think there might be a misconception that once I have this paper, that's it, that's the key, and now everything is going to like open up for me. But listening to that story, clearly that's not the case. And when it comes to the sensory aspect, because this is something I'm fascinated by this. So listening to your story, I didn't know that after the championships, you actually have to sit around and, calibrate that. But it makes so much sense, because what your notes, like what you're tasting, what I'm tasting, could be completely different. So I'm guessing you guys all put in what you've tasted, and then you kind of just take the average of what seems to be the most 3-4 most common notes that are coming across in order to judge the coffee?
Well, so on the Barista Championships, we have a score sheet where we have to analyze the coffee, right? So we're analyzing the flavors, and then we're analyzing the complexity, and then we are analyzing the overall experience of that coffee. Of course, we have a score that we give for each segment. Now, the calibration works on a sense of, I'm going to have the same coffee as you are having, and then you're going to write down what is your experience, and then I'm going to write down what is my experience. Then we had something that's called the sensory judge. So the head judge. So we have the head judge, who is a person that's very experienced, and that person is normally also very active in the coffee industry on the sensory panel across the world. So he or she travels the world often to judge different national bodies. And that head judge will help me and you in case you gave the score for this coffee for 2 points and I gave 6, for example, which shouldn't happen on a world level, to be honest. We should be quite,
close.
Yeah, closer. Yeah. But in case it does, then the head judge will use a common sense knowledge, to kind of like, okay, well, Khaled, what was your experience? Well, my experience was, A, B, C, and D. And then, Maria, what was your experience? My experience was, A, B, C, and D. So, because again, the coffee, if you are on that level already, then, most probably we're talking about the same thing. It's just because we're on our industries, in our countries, drinking and doing different stuff. So it takes a bit of time for us to kind of calibrate. But the head judge is that person who helps us. She's like, well, but, if this is the experience, then, maybe a very good, let's say it's a 4 points. And from what you're describing, this is a very good experience. So why did we put 2? Instead of putting 4, maybe your score is a bit disaligned with, your experience. And then through common sense and discussion and talk, because in the end of the day, we're not there to be right or be wrong. When we judge the World Barista Championships, we're there to use ourselves as, a sensory experience for that coffee, to be as fair to the barista as possible, to be positive about the experience, to be fair with, the presentation, and to just do our job, which is, let me see, what is this coffee tasting like? And let's see if this person is actually the number 1 barista in the world. So we don't necessarily need to be right or wrong. We just have to use our sensory skills and our knowledge to describe that experience that we're having with an open mind, with a professional approach. And because of that, we have to be flexible to listen to our colleagues as well, right? And that's it.
Okay, sorry, I'm geeking out on this because I find this so, I love this, and I haven't had the pleasure of sitting with someone who's had this experience, because I've watched many World Barista Championships like on YouTube and whatever, and I'm always just like fascinated. I'm like, how did you think of that? And the combination, it's like, it really is art. I like how they come up with things. It's like cooking, it's like science. It's really, really cool. So listening to someone who's had the privilege of judging these things, I'm learning a lot because I didn't know all these things.
Just to add to that,
Please.
being a sensory judge as well for the World Barista Championships is I feel it's such a big responsibility, and it's very emotional. Because when you when you enter on the stage with the barista, that barista is probably working on this industry for a very long time. This barista probably invested a lot of money into sourcing that coffee, into preparing that presentation, into probably investing on a coach to help him to, get his presentation on the best level possible. And, he's depending on you to kind of like be able to capture that experience and put that in a paper and eventually be as fair as possible judging that barista to be the first, the second, or the third place, right? So it's a very big responsibility, and when you go, you have to go just thinking about that experience, and when you take all the expectations out and you are there truly as yourself only for that moment, you connect, with that barista, and it can be very emotional. I never forget, I was judging the in Milano in 2021 or 22, and I got the privilege to judge the U.S. Barista Champion, and she's also a business owner from a very a popular coffee roastery in the U.S. And I judged her on the semifinals, and she was using a mix of Colombian coffee. She used one blend for espresso, and she used another single origin for milk beverage. And she included also like some hospitality touch into the presentation, and she would come and wash our hands before we actually drink the coffee. And I remember having to stop myself from crying because, of course, you're on TV and you're being recorded. So I was like, I cannot cry, but my heart was exploding. I was enjoying that experience so much. It was such a beautiful moment of connection. When a business owner, a barista, a professional come and give that experience to you, you are very privileged. You are in a position where, and I never forget, that was the best coffee with milk that I ever tasted until today.
Wow.
That was such a beautiful experience, And so, yes, we're very privileged to, be a sensory judge and experience these moments with the baristas around the world.
So I'm so happy. Thank you for sharing that story, because there's, as we know in coffee, storytelling is so important. Sharing the farmer story, our journey, why we're ethical, why, whatever, creating that reason why you should come and drink my coffee. Mm-hmm. Now, I know in the World Barista Championships, you're judging on lots of different things. And you just touched on a couple, so the type of coffee and so on. But there's always there's a story. And it's not just about, I need to make you the best cup of coffee. There's also a story behind it. So I love that example you gave, because I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a second. I'm like, okay, would Maria have said that was truly the best, that coffee was the best coffee she's ever had, if she didn't have that story and that experience of her touching her hands to feel into that, because there's it's hard to, it's almost impossible, I know, to be completely unbiased and fully objective. We're people at the end of the day. So I'm curious how, if we're looking at that example, how much do you think that story played into, not to discount how great that coffee was, but into you saying that that was one of the best coffees I've ever had?
Definitely. The story.
Yeah.
When judging that coffee, you have to be very transparent with, because that might be the best coffee that Maria had, for example. But that doesn't mean that the coffee became, complex from 3 to 6 score points, for example, just because it was my best experience, right? I can, in the score sheet, you have also one of the segments is your experience of that presentation, and that goes specifically for for this, for example.
Gotcha.
If I really had a special moment on that presentation, I can reward that, that in a certain parameter of my score sheet. But when it comes for the coffee with milk experience, in terms of flavor profile or in terms of, sensory skills, it might have been a good experience, when it comes for the coffee experience.
Sure.
So when I say that was my best coffee experience, it doesn't mean that, that was the best quality coffee that I had tasted in my life, but I had an amazing, extraordinary experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is a difference there. But to reply your question more specific, then yes, definitely. You know, the storytelling, you know, and everything around is what sets the mood for you to have the best or the worst experience. You know, so yeah.
Man, this is so fascinating to me. I love this because when I watched the World Barista Championships, I was like, okay, now we know about this, how significant the story is. And I love that you gave that distinction because it'd be very easy for someone to listen and be like, oh, so that was the best coffee she's ever had. No, that was the best coffee experience. There is a distinction. And when it comes to sensory, so just to give you some context, so I love coffee, but I like coffee that the more complex it is, the more I like it. I like drinking coffee that doesn't really taste like coffee, that tastes like flowers and fruits and mango and strawberry and passion and very acidic, super light roasted and fresh. I only drink iced V60s.
Nice.
Only iced.
Good choice.
So so I was buying coffee from one of the roasteries here from Cypher. Shout out to the Muhammad if you're watching this. And they had I know they do coffee trainings there and stuff. So one day we were just there. I was getting a coffee and they were doing like the sensory training, and I popped in, and he's like, and I thought, I'm like, oh, I could, you know, I know what I like. I could for sure. No, I could smell this, and I would tell you. And he gave me a couple. I like sniffed them, and I was thinking whatever, and I was just wrong on all counts. I was just wrong, and I'm like, okay, and this is where it kind of touches on what you were talking about, where the certification comes in handy because. And everything we just spoke about of you explaining that coffee, putting it in those parameters, me being able to understand like. Strawberry, there's the taste of strawberry I know is a fruit, and there's a taste of strawberry in coffee. It's not the same thing. And when it comes to coffee education, I know you're also a Q grader. So that is something I was like, okay, Q grading is now like, that's the next level of like this whole game. So could you please walk us through, for people who don't know, what is a Q grader? What's your job? And how, I guess, has that impacted the business? Because out of everything you've done, I think that for the business is probably the one that is the biggest like competitive advantage you probably have.
So the Q Grader certification it's a certification by the Coffee Quality Institute, which is an American institute of coffee, and it's certified or give the knowledge to a coffee professional to be able to understand the sensory aspects, right, of your perception of coffee. So, for example, we study a lot about, also, for example, in the Q Grader system, we understand defects in coffee, right? So is it a defect from the cherry? Is it an insect bite? Or is it, there are several types of defects. And specialty coffee, has a certain amount of defects that you can have in a bag of coffee to be considered specialty coffee. Because defects as well should be how can I explain this? Because by the way that you are harvesting the coffee and processing the coffee and then washing the coffee, right? These parameters should help you to reduce the amount of defects in coffee. But anyway, that is very complex, so I'm going to try to stay as easy to understand as possible. So the Q Grader certify you to understand better, how to grade coffee.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? So it starts from green coffee beans, defects, and it goes to sensory skills, right? So, for example, we learn about different levels of sweetness, we learn different levels of acidity, we learn different flavors, and then, we learn all of them mixed together, and then, we learn as well about aroma a lot. So we have a lot of cuppings that we do. Some of them are all, in a dark room where we don't have access visually to the coffee, and we're only... we only rely on
it's
our...
like that, really?
Yeah, it's really fun.
Oh, that's really cool. That's sick.
It is. It's really nice because you get... I think as we live life and we're just always, on the mode of like, what is next and what is happening, we forget about our senses. And I think that training was really nice for me because... we kind of like had so many different, experiences with our sensory skills, and I didn't even know I had. And we all have it, right? But we're not really attuned to that.
We're not trained to do it, to notice them. Yeah.
Correct. So the Q Grader certification gives you the knowledge to certify coffee, because what is this specialty coffee, right? It's basically a more complex coffee beans, has nothing to do with machines, has nothing to do with roasting. Specialty coffee is the quality of the green coffee that you are buying. Or in this case, if you're buying a roasted coffee, right, it's like the quality of that coffee itself. And that quality is measured normally by a Q grader, right, who is going to give the score based on the aroma, based on the flavors, based on the sweetness, based on the acidity, and based on the aftertaste. So if that complexity of those parameters reach 80 points, it is a specialty coffee. It's 75 to 80 points, it's fine commercial. If it's 70 to 75, it's if it's, I'm going to say again. So if it's 80 points, it's a specialty coffee. If it's 75 to 80 points, it's fine commercial. And then if it's 70 to 75 points, then it is commercial coffee. So the Q graders are the professionals that, grade the coffee for us to understand if, this price should be specialty coffee price, it should be fine commercial price, it should be commercial price, right? Because the coffee is a commodity.
Yeah.
And it has a price that goes up and down. And based on that, you can actually price coffees differently based on that quality. So Q graders are those type of professionals. And in a business sense, it helps us. But as a professional, it sets you to understand, much better, the coffee industry as a whole thing.
Of course.
So it's really good.
So then
I don't know if that was easy to understand.
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
good.
I know I'm very into all this stuff. So
Okay.
this is fantastic for me. So it's interesting that as a Q grader, I'm familiar that you guys grade the coffee, but it's graded as green. So, but then when you buy any coffee, specialty coffee, you see the flavor notes. Is the Q grader setting those notes as well? Because you kind of have to, because I guess that's in the cupping, that's when you would kind of set, okay, this green coffee is specialty coffee and these are the notes you can expect with this.
Yeah. So some flavors of specialty coffee or coffee in general, they come from the roasting. Some flavors, they come from, let's say the fruit or the variety of the coffee. Some flavors can be from even the soil. For example, if it's a defective flavor, it can perhaps comes from the soil, or it could come, for example, from the wrong storage or so on. So the flavor can actually, change based on, those parameters. But normally now in our industry, maybe the roastery would, access the coffee and then, choose the tasting notes. But yes, when you are a coffee farm, for example, and you are selling the green coffee to a roastery in Dubai, for example, you're going to send the green coffee samples, and perhaps you're going to put as well the tasting notes of those samples based on the, the Q grader or the experience that you had on your farm.
Yeah.
But then depending on the roasting, depending on, maybe the coffee has a different taste after 1 year of harvest, right? So the roastery has also the responsibility of roasting that coffee and then, putting the tasting notes in the packaging.
Yeah. One thing about coffee that I love is I love the complexity of it, but I think that's also what I'd say the general public don't understand. Like if I bought the highest quality specialty green beans, if you don't have someone to roast it correctly, or let's say even if they roasted it correctly, if I as Khalid, I'm making that coffee and I'm making it wrong, I'm never gonna appreciate what this actually is. And there's so much technique and science, and like you said, the water, the pouring, the temperature, all these kind of things. You touched on Dubai. Now I know you set up Três in Dubai in 2019. You've been going now almost six years now. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so when I look at Dubai, I'm a big coffee drinker, so I go to a lot of the cafes and I try, but I brew my coffee at home every day. And you kind of get to a point, I think, if you're someone who makes coffee every day, the way you make it is always going to be the best. So it might be biased to how other people are making it for you. But with coffee here, the quality of beans and, like you said, the machines and all that, second to none. Like when I travel around the world and I only drink V60s and only ice, like when I'm in Europe, I'm just frustrated because, or in America, like not everywhere has V60s, not everywhere has the beans I like. And here I could blindfold myself and list 10 places that has all of those things for me. So standing out in this market is very hard. There's so many coffee brands popping up left and right, and I see you nodding your head because you've been going through it. For me, I think, you can tell me otherwise, just from my perspective, I think what has set you guys apart is not only the brand you've created, which I want to dive into, but the different avenues you've entered. So the milks, I think the milks were a massive unlock for you guys. I know you guys did the ice creams too. Maybe it's coming soon, I'm not sure, or it's there already. and I know now there's an e-commerce platform like coming out. So from your perspective, reflecting, I guess, on the last 6 years, what was it that you think made you guys stand out? Was it those different things that I was talking about, or is there something that maybe I'm not aware of?
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're right. I think, first of all, I think that the way that we speak about coffee was very different for the region. Like, for example, we were the first coffee brand to have the yellow bags, right? Or to approach coffee in a different method than black and white, right? And I remember actually, some people, they were like, no, but, a yellow bag for coffee doesn't make any sense. And I was like, well, it doesn't make sense for you, but it makes sense for me. And I'm creating this brand and I want to, just be myself. I'm not creating a brand to be another brand in the market and, to sell coffee. I'm creating something that I can actually express my passion for coffee through it. And that has to go with a bit of my personality and myself as well, And I wanted to do the yellow coffee bags because my brand is yellow and it's red and, it's different. So definitely having a personality, right? And having and standing strong on our vision for, what we wanted to do was definitely key, because it was very easy for us to set ourselves apart, because then you can actually come and copy us or try to do whatever we are doing. But, by the time that the other company did that, we are already, doing something else. And I think that's what also helped us to set apart, is that we're not doing something here to have a quick win. We're building a brand, and to build a brand, it goes a lot of, trial and error, and it goes a lot of persistence. And then again, Três Marias' main pillars are quality, community, and innovation. So everything that we create for the brand has to, kind of help us to stay. It has to stay on those three, pillars. So creating new products that take the industry forward is just adding value to ourselves and to our industry. So the ice cream, for example, that you mentioned, the idea about creating the ice cream was, a lot of people wanted to be part of Três Marias. We have a beautiful community that is asking us for more, that is, they're pushing us to, what is next, Três Marias, or, what are you up to? Or I want to drink your coffee, but I actually don't even drink coffee. I was like, well, how can I create a product that includes coffee, that, it is an innovative product, and will not only take from the clients that are already part of the coffee industry, but it would actually, make our pie bigger, so for everybody to enter. It's like, how can we have more clients coming to the specialty coffee industry through our innovation? And I think that was, also another point that, helped us, is like, okay, we're creative. We're not only, going like, this is what we do, it's only roasted coffee beans. Like, no, we're a coffee brand. We have to innovate because we wanted to grow our community. We have to do everything that we do with quality, and we have to do for our community, right? So it was kind of easy to, just keep going to the next thing. And then eventually, we created the coffee beans, we created the coffee capsules, we created the instant coffee as well for the first time, freeze-dried. We created the coffee ice cream. And then I was having a lot of challenges to scale that, because all of those products, they were very nice to, in a very community scale, but they were not necessarily helping me to scale the brand on the size that I needed. And then one day I was driving with a friend in Jumeirah Road, and I ordered a Spanish latte with oat milk. Yes, I drink Spanish latte. Not anymore though, but yeah, no judgment here. The coffee is mine. It's my order. I take it any way I want. And then, because that's another question, it's like, Spanish latte, Maria. I was like, and then what? So yeah, Anyway, I saw the judgment on your head, Khalid.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not. I'll put my hands up and be like, honest. I will honestly say I am a coffee snob inside my heart, but that doesn't. But to be fair, although I'm judging you, I'm also a hypocrite because I'll have a Spanish latte. I'll do all these things too. So I'm a snob, but I'm a hypocrite too. So I put my hands up. You got me. Fair.
I caught you. I'm joking. But and then I was drinking that coffee and I was like, you know what? I can taste anything here but a good cup of coffee. And when I say a good cup of coffee, I'm not saying I wanted to taste the notes or anything like that, but I didn't enjoy that experience. So I was like, yeah, I think this could be my next product, because I remember as well in 2015 when I always remember that I was steaming a almond latte for a client. And as a barista, I was looking at the milk steaming and I was just hating my job. I was like, I hate to steam this milk. Why is this client asking for almond milk? Now I cannot even do latte art. This smells terrible, And I was just thinking like while the milk is, rotating on the milk jug. And I was like, yeah, so I think there is a space here for a very nice alternative milk for coffee in specific, and I think I would like to develop that. And then as soon as we developed that, of course it didn't happen like this, it was a lot of work, but as soon as we started to see the demand in the market, other challenges started to come. And when I'm saying other challenges, I'm talking about supply chain, I'm talking about accounting, I'm talking about literally just getting our things together.
You're almost building a brand new business in a way.
Correct. Thank you. Very good. Very good. It was. I didn't need coffee professionals anymore. Now exactly. I need a supply chain executive. Like, what is that? So it was that process of going through that change was really hurtful because as Maria as well, I love coffee and I had to stop coffee at some point because the milk was growing so much and I had no choice but figured out how to make that happen because, that would put me in the position that I always wanted to be. But at the same time, I didn't have the strength to kind of continue with the coffee and with the ripe market and with the other things that I was doing. So I had to stop everything. And that was very hurtful, because I was like, but I love coffee. People love our brand. People love our coffee beans. People, they see me sometimes, here and there. It's like, yes, I saw the website. It's sold out all the time. You don't have stock. And then we didn't have stock anymore. And, so it was not an easy process, but I think that the resilience that we have behind the brand, and again, it's not a financial, kind of like stimulation. It's more about like, no, this brand has come so far in a very competitive market. We have managed to stand out. We have managed to add value to our industry by speaking coffee in a different way, with quality, with passion, with consistency. So I cannot give up just now, right? I have to figure it out. I have to find a way. And then when you make that decision as a founder, then just I used to say that God send you the right angels, to help you through the journey. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I think that to summarize and reply to you on, what was the reason why we made it through, I think definitely, our passion for our industry and our products, our commitment to our brand, and, the way that we see innovation as part of our DNA, those are very solid reasons why we're standing here today and moving forward to the next stage of business.
No, absolutely. I love that story because as a founder, I know when you start a business, you have a very clear vision, like this is what it's going to be. This is the money maker. This is what happens. And then down the line, you might find an avenue that you're like, oh, this is clearly it's more in demand or it's generating more revenue. So you're torn. I resonate with that feeling torn between my identity of like Maria as the coffee and the brand. I'm not a milk person. I'm like Maria that does coffee, but this is what's really doing well. So that internal tension is really hard. And it takes, not everyone can do it, by the way. There's lots of people that, might not have made that decision. So you should give yourself credit because it's not easy. I think if you think just of a P&L and right now, it would make maybe, it makes sense. But if you think long term, if this is what's successful, that is what gives us, I guess, more of the runway to support this whole coffee thing we're doing anyway. It's not either or. They help each other, but in different ways and maybe in different phases. Maybe you had to start on coffee, then you got into the milk, and now that has kind of maybe settled and it's comfortable and it's growing. Now we have the time to bring the coffee, to revamp the coffee and bring that back. the milk thing was very interesting to me. I know there's lots of, that's also a crazy competitive space here.
It
very,
is.
very competitive. But I've heard, I'm not a like oats, milk, all that kind of, either have normal milk or these days lactose free, just because I like, no bloat is nice. And so I'm curious, but because I've heard from people that they really love yours. Like, it stands out. I've heard from not just my wife, but from many other people. So I'm curious, no secrets, but what was different in your approach when you were decided to enter the milk space?
So when we started developing the recipes for Três Marias, the whole idea behind the milk was to not overpower the taste of coffee.
Okay.
So if I'm drinking an Ethiopian coffee, because when we started the alternative milk journey, it was thinking about the specialty coffee industry, right? And what is the biggest challenge, what was the biggest challenge for alternative milk is that you drink coffee. Is that my experience on the car with my friend? I'm having a coffee and everything that I taste is actually, this taste of alternative milk, which is not really positive. So what we wanted to do is ensure that because you're ordering alternative milk, you're not missing the coffee experience. Meaning, if you are drinking if you're drinking an Ethiopian coffee that is, medium to high acidity, that's fruity, and, the body's light, the milk should not stay on the way for you to feel that experience, right? So if you order cow milk, for example, with an Ethiopian, you are going to still find the flavors of Ethiopian. So that was our first approach. The taste of coffee should always be the star on that experience, not the milk. So we should support the coffee that the client is choosing. And then second, from a barista perspective, right, what is it that I didn't like when I was a barista, right, steaming the milk, is that the milk doesn't steam, is that I cannot do my latte art, and my latte art is part of my customer service with my client, right? So how can we create recipes that will perform as similar as cow milk? So when I mix with my espresso, I am able to do at least a basic tulip or a basic heart, right?
Okay.
So, and then of course the third is the taste, right? So again, it goes back to the first point, which is the coffee should be the main star of the experience, but also the taste should be a positive taste, right? You're not ordering a coconut iced latte. You're ordering a iced latte with coconut milk.
Exactly.
So it shouldn't be over sugar. Like it shouldn't be super sweet, full of sugars. It shouldn't be, like the taste of coconut, kind of like out there on your face. No, it should be a coffee with a different milk. And I think that's what sets us apart. And of course, the brand is a local brand, So, we receive a lot of support from, the other local brands as well. And that's helping us to grow the quality of the milk. And also the fact that we're local, and we were also the first one, if I can say that, the first coffee company to create an alternative milk in the whole region. So, there is a big weight on that, and we try to leverage that on the right moment, which is now. The segment is growing. People wanted to support local. We have a very nice story of a barista who made it to where I am today. So yeah, it's all positive, and I hope that I can keep it up, growing and expanding, to be able to handle all of this demand.
Yeah, no, the way things are going, I'm sure, inshallah, it will continue down that path. And listening to how you explained it, I love what you said, because this is my biggest frustration, whether whatever drink I'm having, whether it's a coffee, whether it's more particularly with matcha, because that's the only thing I drink with milk. Otherwise, I just drink iced V60s. I don't want milk with a hint of matcha. I want a matcha drink with the milk to support it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why your milk has done so well, because you're a barista, because you have that experience of and even with the foaming of the milk, understanding the fat content, how heavy does it have to be to make that kind of latte art, to amplify the taste, is what I think why the brand or the milks have stood out. So awesome job on that. I know now we touched on it earlier, and we wanted to give everyone here a world exclusive. We got something exciting launching. I think, what are we, in 24 hours, I think, but this will be coming out next week. So I'm not going to say anything. I'll leave the rest to Maria.
So I'm very excited to share that we finally got back into coffee. So from tomorrow, 1st of May, you can go to the website and you can place orders for roasted coffee beans, for coffee capsules, and of course for the barista milk, which was out of stock for a very long time as well, due to very high demand on the B2B kind of side of the business. And it's a very special moment for the brand, because we're back, after 1 year without selling coffee and without selling capsules or without having an online presence to the end consumer, right? Just focusing a lot on the B2B. So it's a very special moment for me, especially as a founder, right? Because as I told you, it hurt me to not do coffee for some time. So I carefully chose 9 single origins to the clients. 3 of them, they were already there from the beginning, which is Brazil, Colombia, and Ethiopian, which is our core coffees. These 3 coffees are also available on the capsules. And then I chose some nice different origins that are mostly anaerobic.
Okay.
We had our first anaerobic coffees as the Colombian Mandarin, which was a very popular coffee for Três Marias in 2021. And now anaerobic became a bit more accessible, became a bit more affordable. So we decided to kind of have a line for that as well. So you can find, I think, 3 or 4 origins that are anaerobic. And then we have some couple of washed coffees as well. And I'm a big fan of natural coffees, so I try to go more on that, complexity of flavors and, all of that. So I'm very proud. Like all the coffees that I chose for the e-commerce, they are coffees that I would drink at home and I would be satisfied in terms of quality, in terms of complexity, or even like, for example, if it's a 80, 82, 81 points coffee, they are clean, they're solid, they're nice coffees for, whoever is starting on the journey of coffee, for saying. So I'm very proud and very happy to have the e-commerce up and running. We are a very small company, even though we are, like everywhere. So a lot of work has been, done to have the e-commerce back in place. And I know for a fact that, the community will support us because people have been asking for that since we stopped. So if you are a coffee brand, a fan of the brand, and if you love Três Marias and you love coffee, go to the website, place your order. It's delivered anywhere in the UAE within 1 to 2 working days. And it's done with love, with passion, a lot of resilience, and we hope that everybody enjoys.
No, I'm sure, and I can see the smile on your face, and that you're back you're back into the coffee, which makes me happy as a consumer as well because I've been waiting. And what's interesting, I love what you said, that this is almost like, I think in every founder journey, I'm still quite fresh into mine. It's only been, July will be 2 full years, so still long way to go. But you reach and I feel like this year I reached a similar point to you, which is you've kind of been building and chopping and changing and trying different things and seeing what works and what doesn't. And then you kind of reach a point, you're like, okay, now I think I've figured out what we're doing here. And now we're going on to this is the next evolution of the business. And it feels like that's kind of where you guys are right now.
Yes. I think that we started a business, and as a coffee, we had a lot of experience, right? Like, we're coffee people, but we were not business people. I was not a business person, right? And I barely had any financial education for my own finances, right? So how do you run a business without understanding about money and what is the profit and loss? What is a P&L? What is revenue? What is cost of goods sold? What is gross profit? What is net profit? And what all of that,
the fundamentals. I know. Yeah.
So so while we're launching all the products, while we're doing well, at the same time we're not doing well because there is so much that I have to learn on the other side. And then for me to learn on the other side, perhaps I cannot be so hands-on on this side. And it was just like, whoa, how do I do all of this? And last year was a very tough year for us, or for me specifically, because it was that time where I had to decide, I will jump to the next level and I'm going to embrace these changes, and I'm going to, make sure that I find a way to have the answers of the questions that I don't know the answers for, that I find the right people who can help me, that that I'm going to put the right word on the right work on making this happen. And I'm going to turn the key and start that 2.0,
Yeah.
And of course that comes with a lot of a lot of trust on yourself, and a lot of you have to forgive yourself as well, right? Because you have done so many mistakes on the past, and and you were trying your best. You didn't do them because you want to like to make your life harder, but like it's like, how did I do that? And I was like, well, it's okay, you know better now. So now, if you know better, now you have to do better.
Yeah.
Right? If you go back to the same mistakes, then it's on you. And before, I didn't know things, so I had to find the right people to help me to get there, And honestly speaking, I have been very lucky that people show up for me, that people sometimes even knock my doors, like, I see your story, how can I help? But you have to be on that vibration, You have to be willing to assume that you are wrong, assume that you didn't know better, assume that was another stage of your life, and also embrace this new responsibility that it is to take this business to the next level. And as a young founder, I started when I was 28, as a young founder, first time founder, what do you do? It's like, no, I know everything and I can do this. No, but I will find a way. Well, I have to sell, I will sell. Maria, but you're not selling with profit. I don't care. No, you do. This is a business, So all of that, it's a journey, but I'm glad that I am on this stage right now. We have a different maturity level to take the business to the next level. And again, we stay positive, we stay humble, we put the work, and we just hope that we're going to find whatever is ours, that's waiting us out there.
No, 100%. And like I think you said such a great point, forgiving yourself as a founder. I'll be very honest, that's probably the area I struggle with most. Very super hard on myself, because I know if I'm not, like how easily I can fall off the tracks. But like you said, each stage, you said something in the last podcast that really hit home for me, which was you knew what you wanted, you didn't know what it would take, but every level demands a new level of you.
Yes.
When you said that, I was like, oh, that one like hit home, because I feel like that's where I am right now. So I really, really resonated with that. And I know, so you just made the decision last year, you're like, okay, we want to go to the next level. Scary, lots of tough decisions, you have to forgive yourself. And I know, obviously, I want to hear about this experience because I've never had a pleasure of speaking to someone who's done this. So I know you're on, I saw Shark Tank, of course. And I know you got an investment from Tawfiq and from Noor. So side note, Tawfiq was the first guest we ever interviewed on the American University in Dubai podcast. So Amazing. That was great to see, someone like him investing in the business. Now, it would be very easy for me from someone from the outside to look at you and be like, oh, Maria's made it. She's made it. She's built this amazing, successful business. That's it. But I know from listening to the other podcasts and our conversation today, for you, I feel like you've just begun. You feel like we've just started to scratch the surface. So could you walk me through that whole Shark Tank experience and how it works and whatever? Just give us maybe a peek behind the curtain of how that process works and what that has done for the business over the last, I think this happened last year. Last year, yeah.
So Shark Tank was an amazing experiencing overall, because first of all, it was a show that I always look up to. Second, my mom watched that shows, quite often, and she always said, Maria should be on that show. Maria should be on that show, And so it was really, really nice to, be a business that took the attention of Shark Tank, to invite me to go there. But I think the most important part of Shark Tank for me, it wasn't, of course, it was, the fact that the 5 sharks, offered me investment. So that was amazing. It was a very good boost of my, I was in a very sensitive, part of that moment. I needed investment, but I didn't know if I wanted to take investment because I have had experiences before that was not so positive. So I was like, I don't want to take anybody's money because, I might mess up, and people are not very flexible when you mess up with money.
That's for sure.
And I'm also not the type of person that I wanted to, do something that is going to trap my soul into that, if I'm not really committed to. Not committed, because I'm going to say yes if I'm committed, but sometimes you don't really have what it takes, yet. And there are expectations from both sides. And, that's something that I've learned as well over the years, right? When you choose an investor for your business, you should be aligned from core values. Unless you are, raising, I don't know, 50 billion US dollars, and and you are already a very solid company, and that's but it's not my case. I'm a startup, and I am the face of my business, and I face investors, I face clients, I face suppliers. So if I don't pay, or if I am late with something, I am the one replying for that, right? Or if I'm very successful, yes, I'm the one celebrating that. But also I'm my brother doesn't come to clean things for me. My husband doesn't come to clean these things for my father. I have to clean my own mess. So that gives me also another level of responsibility when taking something from someone. So Shark Tank for me was, first of all, a boost on my confidence level after being, very sad from previous investments and partnerships that didn't work. Not to blame my side, not to blame their side. It was just not meant to be. But I was on that moment, was like, I cannot do it my own because I don't have the money. But I'm so scared to take, money and put myself on those situations again. So how do I do it, So Shark Tank was amazing because I had to because I went to national television. So I was like, I cannot go to national television and embarrass myself. I have watched some videos before from the American show and the UAE show, and they're gonna
they're going in on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not gonna forgive me if I say something that make no sense. So I have to do actually I have to understand my business.
Of course.
And I have been waiting for that opportunity because I have been running from understanding my business because I didn't believe I had the capacity to do so. So it's like, oh, Maria, you have to open your profit and loss and you have to look line by line. It's like, no, but I don't know numbers. I'm not good at it, I was like, no, but I have to be good at it because this is my business. So if I'm not good at it, then who is going to be good at it? And then Shark Tank came to kind of and I already knew that I was on that phase for a year and a half where I knew I needed to improve that side.
Yeah.
But I was like, sure.
Eventually, I'll figure it out. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No. Next year, no, there is no next year if you don't fix it now.
So true.
So I was like, okay, so Shark Tank came to make me actually do the homework that I needed to do.
Yeah.
And that made me feel very comfortable to go on the show. It made me feel very happy to feel that the 5, sharks wanted to invest in the business. And then also the response of the community towards the show, because I didn't know that, a lot of people would know about the brand. I knew that the brand was, quite popular and all of that. But a lot of people didn't know the story. Some people didn't even know that I built the brand, on my own, or that I started as a barista, or, they didn't know that, there are a lot of information that, people didn't know about the brand. And I think that Shark Tank kind of summarized our story in 30 seconds and, and was on national television. So I think for brand awareness, for storytelling, for Maria as a founder and CEO to kind of sum it up her 6 years of business and really jump into that next phase with knowledge, with commitment, and feeling that she's capable to handle whatever is coming. I think that was the most impactful result that Shark Tank gave to me and to the brand,
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. And until today, people say, oh, you're the Shark Tank girl. I was like, well, yeah, also the Shark Tank girl, it was, Shark Tank was part of our story.
Yeah.
It came in a very good moment. It came when we needed. So I'm very thankful to that opportunity. But again, we continue. So, it was part of our story. And it's not who we are, right? We're not a brand that, was just founded on Shark Tank and that, no. They came in a very good moment of the business when the business needed the exposure, the trust and all of that. And we're very thankful for that. So, thank you for Shark Tank to have come to the region. There are a lot of entrepreneurs here, that don't know how to raise funds, that don't have the platform to showcase their stories. And I think Shark Tank is a show that it's an amazing platform for people to go there and pitch and hear from people that do business in a proper way, because what they say to you on the show, they're not saying that to embarrass you or ask questions that are not valuable questions. They're asking business questions that are important for you as a founder to know. So it's an amazing platform as well for you as a founder to learn from the sharks on how business is perceived on a higher level, on people that do business in a much bigger scale than your startup. So it's just good things from Shark Tank, really.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that story, because I didn't know. You're the first person I've had the pleasure of sitting down with who was on Shark Tank. So, and listening to what you said, not only from a brand awareness perspective, that it came at the right time for you, it forced you to learn about your business. And I think, because I've been watching the show for years as well, and I always watch, I'm like, okay, what do you need to have? You gotta have a good story, the numbers, oh my God, make sure you know your numbers, the competitors, all that stuff. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can watch it and say, yeah, I'll think of all these things. But to go through the process of really, because it's deep work and it takes time, you really have to think about it. And then not only that, you have to defend it.
Yeah.
And I think that whether you got invested or not as an entrepreneur, that experience, going through something like that is like just, like another scar of like you're, moving forward and building, because I can imagine it was quite intimidating.
In my case, not only that, I was also, at that time, I had no employees on the business because I had to fire everyone. So I was the one actually doing the coffee bar that was on the stage. I was the one printing the bottles. I was the one not only preparing myself as a business owner, but also everything else that was happening on the stage for the brand. It was not made by a marketing department. It was actually made by me.
Wow.
And the pitch, although I had help, but everything that was staged on Shark Tank was actually Maria, and it was really nice. It was really powerful for us as a brand, and I'm very grateful for that moment.
Yeah, no, it's very clear to to see how you feel about it and what it has done for the business. So I hope that moment was the catalyst for phase 2 and where you're trying to go.
Thank you.
To round off our conversation today, Maria, just 3 more questions. So entrepreneurship, and this, you touched on this in the last episode, it's a very lonely journey. So I'm part of a founder community as well. We have these discussions all the time, and although I can comfortably sit here and say I have friends, I have family, I do have a support network. When you're building something, only you really know like what you've been through, because the thoughts that you are having every day. When you're overcoming that negative emotion to push through. When you have that anxiety, but you don't want to share it. You don't want to whatever. Even if you talk about it, there's still I think there's an element of entrepreneurship as a founder that it's you and you. Whether you win or fail, you're gonna look in the mirror one day and be like, either we did it or we failed. Now, I guess you've gotten to this point, almost by yourself, and now you're trying to go to that next level. And they say famously, to go far you need people, and this is where people are starting to come into the equation. So my question to you is, what's the future of Três Maria? Where do you want to see, I guess, long term the brand be, let's say over the next 5 years? Where do we want to be?
So, well, you're the founder, so you know that we always have a vision, right, for the long term. Of course, the long term of Três Marias is becoming a global brand, right? From the day one, we wanted to become a global coffee brand. Now, the vision is there, right? That's our biggest vision. But I stopped looking at that vision because that vision doesn't exist if I don't take care of today. So my approach.
Great point.
My approach now towards the business is like, okay, what do I have in my hands today that I can exit, that I can do better, that's going to help me to reach my bigger vision, regardless of, I know what it is, but let's say we don't know, right? What is it today that I can do that's going to help me to reach there? Because when we don't do the work that we should be doing today, we're getting more far from that vision. So the vision is to become a global brand. Now, how do we do that? By, first of all, making sure that we have our community happy, right? We are a UAE brand. So we have to make sure that our UAE market is well, right? I cannot start thinking about global expansion when I cannot supply my local market, right? So fixing my problems, which we're doing, there is never an end, right? You always have to adjust, and this is not working, so you have to adjust here, and this is not working, you have to do this, right? So it's a constant work. But you get better on doing that work, right?
Yeah,
you get
sure.
stronger, and now you have a better network of people that are doing the same. So you can take the phone and you can share your experience, and someone can, say something, and that just hit what you needed to hear, and now you know what to do. So our vision is to be a global brand. At the moment, we're doing that in a small scale, which is conquering the UAE market and then going regionally. We restarted recently with Saudi Arabia. We have appointed a distributor there. I can actually say we just started with Dunkin' Donuts, Saudi Arabia, 800 stores.
Wow.
So that's our big celebration.
That's amazing. Wow, what a win. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm so honored you shared this with us.
We have some big news coming very soon.
Okay.
Apart from that, but to talk about Saudi Arabia, we restarted Saudi Arabia as well. We tried before, we failed miserably, and now we're trying again. Stronger, more solid, more positive, more professional. So we hope that is going to work. And then after the region, of course, we wanted to expand. Perhaps Europe, or we will see. Whatever is mine, it's already there. I just have to put the work today, and that's what we're doing. So I know that we're going to get there. I have no questions. I never question myself because I see it. And when I see it, I know I can achieve.
Yeah.
If I don't see it, I know it's a no-no. I was like, I don't see that happening, But I'm very much like that. But if I see it, then I know it's possible. And I just have to find a way. And I just have to, learn. And I just have to expand. But if I see and I want it, I will get it. And I see that for the brand, from the time that I put my eyes on the branding, when I received my brand book in 2018, I was like, whoa, this brand can go places, before I even started roasting coffee for my own. So that's our goal, is to, have a global footprint for the brand, to continue to do innovation, so we can add value to our industry, and also always find ways to include more people into our industry, do and create products that have quality, right? So we're always elevating that experience for our clients. And then eventually, our community, making sure that our community is happy. At some point, I would like to do something back to the community, not yet, because we're still figuring things out. But I know for a fact that we're going to reach a point where, we have to start thinking about how can I, give back to my community, whatever it is that I choose to, do. So that's our future plans.
Well, I think given how the last 6 years have gone, I think you're in a great spot to, for phase 2 and for this amazing vision that you have for the brand and for coffee. And I really appreciate that. Why you guys stand out for me is the innovation that you guys do. You think outside the box, like you said, like if people are in coffee here, or that I know people are in coffee, you're either a cafe owner, you're a coffee trader, you're a barista, you don't really, you kind of focus just on the coffee, which is not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. But your story shows me that, if you just start looking at something that's complementary or close by, there's so much innovation that you could do with the industry. For my last 2 questions, Maria, these are questions I ask all my guests.
Okay.
So on the last podcast I watched you on, you got emotional when she was asking you about your parents and your family, and I know they're very proud of you and what you've done and getting here to this point.
You're gonna make me cry again?
No, that's not my goal.
Okay.
No. But my question is, I know they're proud of you. My question for you is, looking back personally or professionally, what are you most proud of for yourself?
Personally, for Maria, I think, I'm very proud that I had everything, I had everything to fail. I don't know how I can say this phrase in a very, for Maria, everything was set up for me to fail, my conditions, where I was born, in a very small city with no money, with no English, with no network, how am I going to see the world, right? So overcoming those challenges, for me, it make me very humble, and in a humble, in a sense of like, like the world is amazing, life is beautiful, and everyone is capable to achieve their dreams. So I feel very proud and humble, to have reached where I am today, to be an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur in Dubai, to have lovely friends around me, to have my family loving me and being proud of me, but mostly going through all these challenges and not changing my core, my heart. Like I'm a happy person. So many moments of these, things in personal life, in business, like the things that I have seen, the things that I have heard, the things that I have gone through, they, they almost broke me. At some point I didn't want to get out of the bed. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to get out of my house. I don't want to see people. What is happening? So, but I love my business. So how do I, overcome all of this to be able to fulfill that? So I think that going through all of that, growing so much as I did, and not, becoming a bitter person or a person that, or I'm like this. No, 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 no. Like, I'm Maria, and I'm very proud to have reached here, and I'm going to love my fellow humans. I'm going to do coffee. I'm going to do good. And if you choose to not do that, as in a business opportunity or in a friendship or whatever, that's on you. That's not on me. That doesn't change who I am. So, and at some moments I really question, like, my God, like I cannot become this person now. When when you have those feelings and you have those thoughts,
100%.
and I was like, no, I don't. I choose not to become this person. I choose to stay as this person day after day, and that growth as well came with a lot of work on my spiritual side, and that's something I'm very proud of.
Yeah.
I really went deeper into my beliefs and my faith, and today I'm rocket solid. I feel so solid with my prayers, and I feel so solid with my faith, and I know that it might be a shaky moment right now, but that doesn't define me, because I know that I'm blessed. So this is something that I'm very proud of too.
Yeah. I resonate with your story so much, on the point of overcoming all the things I think there's your situation was quite difficult, from Brazil, small town, whatever. Like, so when you say everything was set up for you to fail, yeah, it's pretty incredible that you are where you are today. So that's like already like, wow, like I could honestly say, I'm like, if I had those conditions, I don't know if I would have been able to do it. I like to be honest. But what I really appreciate is what you said, that it didn't change you. It didn't change who you are, because it would be very easy. It's so easy to feed into the anger, the frustration, the disappointment. And you said a key word there, which is being humble. And what I've learned in my life, at least, is once you think you're on top, no matter, it's not financial, it's not, it's like a mindset. Once you think you're maybe superior or better than someone or whatever, at least in my experience, life has a very good way of coming and humbling the shit out of you. It'll slap you, like, to be like, okay.
Chill.
And that's been, I think this past year, that's been probably my biggest lesson, to be not more humble with people, but more humble between me and myself.
Yes.
And because that will reflect internally. So
everything is within ourselves.
100%.
Nothing is outside.
Yeah.
And that's the secret. I think that's what I came to realize, just to add to what you're saying. Everything is here. It's, actually my friend, my good friend Rima, she always tells me that the longest journey and travel that you're going to have is between your mind and your heart.
100%.
Yeah.
I fully follow that. I fully echo that message. And again, we've come a long way, but there's still a lot more things coming up, and probably even tougher times ahead. But we always say be grateful, and I'm sure things will work out. And for my last question, Maria, what is the message you'd like everyone to take home with them today?
Wow. A message for business or personal growth or anything. Just a message. Uh, I think I feel that I would like to say today that doesn't matter what is your situation in life today, if you're going through, something very difficult with your business or with your personal, development or whatever, um, anyone has the power to choose to change their reality today. It's a choice, right? It's the habits that we have, is the people that we surround ourselves with, is the mindset that we have every day when we wake up. So I feel that my message is today is if you're not happy with the life you're living, it's your choice to change it. You are one choice away of having the life that you always dream about. I always dreamed about traveling the world, having good friends, being financially stable, having a, a bigger voice in this world, in however way it is, And I choose every day, right? When I wake up to work, when I wake up to do networking, when I wake up to grow, right? And expand myself to be able to get closer to that vision. All of that is a choice. I can choose to give up right now, find a full-time job and, have a different life. That's nothing wrong. You're always one choice away from the life you want. So don't think that you're not capable because A, B, C, or D. Like there is always a way for you to reach where you would like to reach.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It doesn't need to be a powerful message, I feel. It's just a message that resonates to the moment I am. We're always one choice away from the life that we want, but we have to choose. We cannot have one leg in our old life and one leg on the life that we dream and, hope that we're going to take one street. No, you have to choose your side and you have to pick your line and you have to walk towards the life you want.
Yeah.
So make that decision today and put the work and think on the long term. Believe in yourself and anything is possible.
I don't think there's a better way to end the show than with that message. I really, really love that message. And it's not the first time I've heard a message like that, but I think what I loved what you said at the end there, which was you can't have one foot in your old life and one foot in the life that you want to have because you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to move as fast as you could here. And this is still holding you back from, even moving in the first place. So, and I think a lot of times as people, we might see that vision, but all we see from here to that vision is walls and walls and walls and mountains and all this kind of stuff. And I think when you frame it as a choice, it kind of, what's the word? Because everyone can make a choice, right? You want to drink water, you don't want to drink water. It's a choice. Mm-hmm. Simple. And it just takes I think the intensity out of it a bit and makes it much more, at least to me, approachable.
Yes.
If I just make this small choice, that could lead to that next small choice and so on and so on. Maria, this has been such a fun conversation. I've been wanting to talk to you, for a very long time. And I want to just say congratulations on everything that you've built and everything you've been through to get to this point. I think you are an inspiration to many people, not only in coffee, but as entrepreneurs as well. And I wish you nothing but the best. If anyone wants to work with you, reach out, connect, the website, where can we get in touch?
Thank you first, Khalid, for the opportunity to be here. It's a pleasure to talk to you too. If you guys wanted to try my coffee beans and the coffee capsules and the alternative milk, you can find on Três Marias website, which is tresmariascoffee.com.
Okay.
If you need something more urgent, you can find the alternative milk on Noon 15 Minutes, Deliveroo as well, and Talabat. If you want to get in touch with me, you can reach me out on LinkedIn, my full name, or on my Instagram as well. I'm quite active, and my response rate is very fast. So it's Maria Pavani DXB. Okay. So you can reach me out there. And the Instagram of the business as well is Drink Três Marias. So follow us, engage with us on the posts, and if you are a coffee lover, support us. We would love to be part of your world as well.
Well, you heard it here, guys. That's all the ways to get in touch. We'll make sure to put all these links, in the show notes, so don't worry. Maria, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Guys, to everyone listening, thank you so much. Please make sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe to the podcast. I hope it helps. Pod on all channels. And as always, guys, I hope it helps. Peace.
Peace. I love it.
And that's another episode in the bag, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. The goal of this podcast is to provide, as I like to call it, education on demand. We cover a wide range of topics, and the goal is to provide you with the knowledge, the tools, and the insights to improve your lives both personally and professionally. And if you're enjoying the show and you're enjoying the content, if you could please do me the small favor of hitting that subscribe button, would really help me build the show and build the channel, and that's all I ask. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations, bigger guests, and as always, guys, hope it helps. Peace.